Hi, my name is Ben Taylor, and this is the Vesma Networks Products channel. Today we're going to discuss the Terrace QAM. The Terrace QAM is designed for deployment in indoor hospitality locations such as hotels and dormitories. It enables cable service providers to deliver standard and high-definition television services to their customers without the need for set-top boxes or adapters. The Terrace QAM can decrypt television channels secured with industry-standard encryption and then re-encrypt or transcript those channels using pro-idiom encryption. The Terrace QAM can tune and demodulate QAM television channels, extract video transport streams and associated programming information, and then remodulate and transmit the channels to devices capable of tuning to QAM channels. The front of the Terrace QAM contains 4 fan modules, as well as the 2 USB inputs, the most important of which is the console port. Above this is the LEDs, which display the status of the unit. On the back of the Terrace QAM, we have the 2 power supply modules, as well as the RF output board. Now this can be a TQ1030 Plus board, or it can be a TQ1020D Plus board, or it can be a TQ1035 Plus board. The difference between the TQ1030 Plus board and the TQ1020D Plus board is that the TQ1020D Plus board has 4 RF ports, whereas the TQ1030 Plus board only has the 1 RF port and 1 RF test port. Like the TQ1030 Plus board, the TQ1035 Plus board only has the 1 RF port and 1 RF test port. Unlike the TQ1030 Plus board, the TQ1035 Plus board has the additional benefit of being able to do MPEG-4 to MPEG-2 transcoding. Beneath this is an additional slot that can be used for an additional RF output board. Now here we have the auxiliary input board. This can be a TQ1050 Plus board or a TQ1055 Plus board. The difference between the two is that the TQ1055 Plus board is intended for EPG use. Beneath this is the RF input board. This can be a TQ1042 Plus board or a TQ1045 Plus board. The difference between the two is that the TQ1042 Plus board can demodulate up to 32 QAMs, whereas the TQ1045 Plus board can demodulate up to 40 QAMs. Beneath this is the processor board. Now this can be a TQ1007LT Plus board that has 4 cable card slots, or it can be a TQ1007 Plus board that has those same 4 cable card slots underneath, as well as an additional 6 cable card slots for a total of 10.
When the customer first receives the Terrace QAM, it will come in a box that contains the Terrace QAM itself, as well as a package with additional items in it. It is important to retain the original packaging, as the Terrace QAM comes in specially designed foam that will be invaluable if the unit ever has to be returned for repair. Now within the specially designed package, there's going to be the 2 power cords, the coaxial cable used to connect the RF input to the processor board, the washers and screws that will be used to screw the Terrace QAM into the rack, a safety precautions manual, and finally, some but not all of our customers will also receive the cable card retainer kit.
How do I access the text-based menu using the Craft Interface port? To access the text-based menu using the Craft Interface port, there are 4 steps. The first step is you will connect a computer running terminal emulation software to the USB port located on the front panel of the Terrace QAM chassis. You are going to need a USB A to B cable in order to make this connection. Step 2, if necessary, you're going to download the USB to UART driver that's available as a compressed file from the document library page at Silicon Labs. 3, Using your terminal emulation software, create a new connection and choose the COM port where your USB cable is plugged in. To find this out, go under Device Manager and the new COM port will be opened up. And finally, 4, you'll need to go into PuTTY as we are now, and then specify the connection settings. To do this, click on Serial, then first enter in the COM port that you found when you looked under Device Manager. In our case, this was COM port 4. Then you'll change the baud rate to 115200. The data bits will remain at 8. The stop bits will remain at 1. The parity will be none. And the flow control will be none. Once you have all that set up, click Open and you'll be taken to the text-based menu. This is important when first setting up the unit because the text-based menu allows you to determine the IP address of the unit that was established via DHCP. It also provides access to things like the cable card decryption page, so one can begin provisioning the cable cards before the web GUI is even accessible. How do I SSH into the unit? To SSH into the unit, you'll open up PuTTY and then type in the IP address of the unit, and then you will click Open, and that will take you to the text-based menu. Users can view the Terrace QAM system information using a text-based interface. The text-based interface is accessible locally from the Craft Interface port or remotely via SSH. Once you have connected to the text-based interface, you will need to log in using the same username and password as for the web GUI. Once connected, the menu allows the user to perform the following actionable items: reboot the system, perform a debug dump, reset the persistent logs, remove a USB drive from the aux module, upload a TLV, and change the password. Otherwise, the text-based menu provides read-only access to the Terrace QAM functions. Important functions that one may wish to access would be things like decryption, identification, which will show you the various different cable card information. To scroll across the screen, simply enter R for write, and keep doing so until you get all the information that you need. To go back, click 0, and then 0 again. Other important features are 5 interfaces. Now here we will have the various different IP addresses. When the unit is first turned on, this is the best way to determine which IP address the unit is using. Currently ours is using 172.168.101.211. Where do I find the decryption and cable card information? To find the decryption and cable card information, click on Decryption, then go to Status or Identification. On the decryption status page, we have the web root, which provides a web link to the Mocher's web page and provides information specific to the cable card inserted into the selected Mocher slot. You have the authorizations, which provide a web link to the conditional access information of the cable card. You have the status, which shows the status of the Mocher. You have the copy pair status, which shows whether or not the cable card has been properly authenticated and validated. And you have the VCT/hub ID. This displays the virtual channel table or hub ID that was sent from the head-end through the out-of-band channels via the cable card. Finally, there's the general information. The general information contains the cable card ID, which is a unique identifier assigned to a cable card when it's manufactured. There's the host ID, which shows the number assigned to the Mocher during the certification process. There's the data, which is a number that is derived from a cable card with a Mocher or pairing the cable card. Unit address, which is a unique identifier for the cable card. Card serial number, this is the cable card serial number. There's the ECM MAC, which is the MAC address of the embedded cable modem. This isn't present on all modules. And there's the host MAC, which is the MAC address of the Terrace QAM host. And finally, the host type. This is the type of communications with the head-end supported by the cable card. Now there's also the decryption identification page. Here we have the MOCR number, which shows you which slot the cable card is in, the host ID, the MAC address, the card ID, the card serial number, the unit address, and the data ID. All of this information is important when provisioning the cable cards. Where do I find the alarm and event information? To find the alarm and event information, click on Alarms and choose either Current or History. The Current page shows all the currently active alarms. In this case, there's a Decryption VCT ID mismatch on this unit. Now there's also the Alarms History page. This shows all the previous alarms, what state they're currently in. For example, all these other ones are cleared, but the other one we saw that was in the current page is still raised. There's the time that it was raised, and if it was cleared, there's the time that it was cleared. Where do I find the EPG content? To find the EPG content, click on Content, then EPG. This will bring you to the Electronic Programming Guide information page. This page is available for all those who have purchased the optional TQ1055 Plus module, as that is EPG enabled. On this page, it will show the Hospitality VCN for both the Electronic Programming Guide or the auxiliary EPG information. It will show the source ID, epoch time, AHR time, duration, offset, MPAA rating, TV rating, title, category, and channel name. It will also show the major channel number, minor channel number, and title. Where do I find the out-of-band system information? To find the out-of-band SI, click on Content, then Out-of-band SI. The out-of-band system information page shows all the input program information obtained by the Terrace QAM for use in the routing and mapping of an output channel map. On this page we have the source ID. Now each channel must have a source ID. The source ID is an unsigned 16-bit number from 0 to 65535. There's also the virtual channel number, the source name of the channel, the center frequency of the channel, the program number of the channel, and finally the modulation of the channel, which indicates the QAM mode the channel is in. Where do I find information about the sources? To find information about the sources, click on Content, then Sources. The Sources page shows detailed information of the input programs from the out-of-band SI and whether or not the Terrace QAM has been able to find the PMT and PAT needed to find the appropriate PIDs to remap each program. On this page we have the source ID, VCN number, source name, input program number, which indicates the program number within the video transport stream, the input EIA, which shows the EIA channel number associated with the input, the input frequency, which gives the frequency at which the tuner receives the RF input signal. It shows you whether or not the program has been hidden, whether or not it is encrypted, as well as showing you the PAT, which shows you the program association table, and the PMT, which shows you the program mapping table. And finally, it shows you the number of PIDs. Where do I find the mappings page? To find the mappings page, click on Content, then Mappings. The mappings page shows the input source information to output EIA channel mappings created by the user. It also shows detailed PID information for each program mapped. This page contains the hospitality virtual channel, the source ID, the source name, the output EIA, the output program, the video PID, the primary audio PID, the secondary audio PID, and finally the state. Where do I find the routing information? To find the routing information, click on Content, then Routing. The routing page shows how the Terrace QAM is routing each selected input program from its input channel to the mapped output channel. It also shows the bit rates of the QAM channel on which the input program is located and the output bit rate of the QAM channel to which the program is mapped. On this page we have the hospitality virtual channel, the source ID, the source name, the input EIA channel, the input frequency, the tuner status, the tuner uncorrectable blocks, the tuner corrected blocks, the input EIA channel bitrate, the MOCR, as well as the LTS, which stands for Local Transport Stream ID and will be measured from 1 to 6. There's also the output QAM, output EIA, output program, and output EIA channel bitrate. Where do I find information about the emergency alert system? To find EAS information, click on Content, then EAS. The EAS webpage displays the source ID of the EAS details channel as specified in the TLV. The default EAS source ID is the source ID of the EAS details channel, also the channel to which the Terrace QAM tunes when an EAS event occurs. Where do I find information about the incoming program allocation table? To find information about the incoming PAT, click on Content, then Incoming PAT Info. On this page, we'll have the input EIA channel as well as the PAT. Where do I find information about the incoming program mapping table? To find information about the incoming PMT, click on Content, then Incoming PMT Info. On this page, we'll have the source ID, input EIA channel, and program mapping table. Where do I find information about the input bit rates? To find information about the input bit rates, click on Bit Rates, then Input. The Input Bit Rates page indicates the bit rates of the input QAM channels. On this page we have the input EIA, the input frequency, which is the center frequency of the input QAM channel, instantaneous, which is a snapshot of the input QAM bit rate, the last 30 seconds, which is an average of the input QAM bit rate over the previous 30 seconds, the last 5 minutes, which is an average of the input QAM bit rate over the previous 5 minutes, and finally the last 10 minutes, which is an average of the input QAM bit rate over the previous 10 minutes. Where do I find the output bit rates? To find the output bit rates, click on Bit Rates, then Output. The Output Bit Rates page provides information about the amount of bits being received at the tuner and transmitted on the RF output port. You can view this page to determine if the Terrace QAM is receiving a good signal and sending data. On this page we have the output EIA, the output frequency, the instantaneous bit rate, the last 30 seconds, the last 5 minutes, and the last 10 minutes. Where do I find information about the bit rates on the HD encoder? To find information about the bit rates on the HD encoder, click on Bit Rates, then HD encoder. This page shows the output bit rates of each individual program being either streamed via USB or encoded via the component inputs on the auxiliary module. On this page we have the slot number, which is the physical slot located on the Terrace QAM chassis, the slot name, which is the name of the slot on the Terrace QAM, the chain, which is the encoder chain, this can be one of two, the type, which is the type of input, the instantaneous bit rate, the last 30 seconds, the last 5 minutes, and the last 10 minutes. Where do I find the bit rates per program? To find the bit rates per program, click on Bit Rates, then Per Program. The Per Program page shows the bit rate for each individual program on the output of the Terrace QAM. On this page we have the source ID, output EIA, output program, instantaneous bit rate, last 30 seconds, last 5 minutes, and last 10 minutes. Where do I find information about the interfaces? To find information about the interfaces, click on Interfaces. This will bring you to the interface page. The interface page displays interface information about the embedded cable modem, the Craft interface port, SNMP, and the Ethernet network connection. On this page we have network status, which includes the MAC address, which is the MAC address of the Terrace QAM host, state, which is the present condition of the network, enabled, which is the status of the connection to the Terrace QAM host, broadcast address, which is the network broadcast address obtained through DHCP, RX bytes, which is the cumulative number of received bytes, TX bytes, which is the cumulative number of transmitted bytes. As well, there's also the network settings. Network settings include the MAC address, which is the MAC address of the Terrace QAM host, assignment type, which can be either DHCP or static and determines the IP allocation assignment, the IPv4 address, the net mask, the gateway, the domain, DNS1, which is the primary domain name server IP address, and DNS2, which is the secondary domain name server IP address. To change these network settings, click Edit Row, and this will allow you to change the various different settings such as the assignment type, IP address, netmask, gateway, domain, DNS, and DNS2. Below that is the ECM. The ECM contains information about the interfaces. The interfaces are the physical interfaces of the ECM. This can be cable or Ethernet. Then there's the IPv4 address, which is the IP address of the ECM interface, the netmask, the MAC address, which is the MAC address of the associated interface, the gateway, the received bytes, the transmitted bytes. As well, there's also SNMP, which includes the SNMP community and the download MIB. Where do I find information about the module presence? To find information about the module presence, click on Hardware Status, then Module Presence. This page will show the input and output modules and if they are present. Here we have the slot name, and the type of module that's in each slot. Beneath that we have the power supply presence. There are two power supplies, and in this case they're both present. Where do I find information about the output modules? To find information about the output module, click on Hardware Status, then Output Module. In this case we only have one output module, but there can be two. Next to that is the chain, which will be 1, 2, 3, or 4, the center frequency for each chain, the EIA channels associated with each chain, the QAM mode each chain is in, the block size, which can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8, the interleaver depth, the TLV config power, the target power, and this will be whatever the output power was set to, the actual power, which should be within 0.1 dBmV of the target power, and finally muting to show if one of the chains has been muted. Where do I find information about the HD encoders? To find information about the HD encoders, click on Hardware Status, then HD encoders. This page displays the status of the auxiliary input module. On this page we have the slot number, the slot name, the chain, the component status, which is the status of the analog component video encoders, and the USB status. There's also a Remove USB button. This button allows the user to remove an attached USB device without interrupting the component video input of the same encoding chain. Where do I find information about the out-of-band tuner? To find information about the out-of-band tuner, click on Hardware Status, then Out-of-Band Tuner. This page displays information about the out-of-band signal being received on the RF input port. The values given are recorded since the out-of-band signal was locked. The values include the modulation error rate, or MER, the received bytes, and it also contains the tuning information, as well as which mocher is the master mocher. Where do I find information about the in-band tuners? To find information about the in-band tuners, click on Hardware Status, then In-band Tuners. This page displays the input tuning characteristics on a per QAM basis. Here we have the current tuner statistics, which includes the input EIA, the input frequency, the QAM mode, the status, uncorrectable blocks, corrected blocks, and sample interval. The sample interval is the time interval of the input sample. Beneath that we have cumulative tuner statistics. And again we have input EIA, input frequency, QAM mode, uncorrected blocks, and corrected blocks. Where do I find information about the embedded cable modem module? To find information about the ECMM, click on Hardware Status, then ECMM. The ECMM page shows the ECMM uptime, as well as the ECM downstream statistics, including the frequency, which is the RF frequency at which the cable modem is receiving network information, the power, which shows the power of the RF signal being received at the cable modem, width, which is the size in megahertz of the downstream channel that the ECM is authorized to use, modulation, which shows the modulation type of the downstream channel, SNR, which is the signal-to-noise ratio of the downstream channel the ECM is currently using, unerrored indicates the data packets being received without errors, corrected, the Terrace QAM can correct blocks that have been damaged or corrupted. This column shows the percentage of blocks that the Terrace QAM has corrected. Uncorrectable. When the Terrace QAM does not have enough accumulated data, it cannot correct a block. This column shows the percentage of blocks that the Terrace QAM is unable to correct. ECM upstream statistics include the frequency, which is the center frequency of the upstream channel, power, which is the power of the upstream channel, width, which is the channel width of the upstream channel, and modulation, which is the modulation type of the upstream channel. Where do I find information about system monitoring? To find information about system monitoring, click on Hardware Status, then System Monitoring. This page displays the temperatures of the various different modules, the voltages of the various different PCBs, as well as the fans and what RPM they're running at. Where do I find information about the operating system stats? To find information about the operating system statistics, click on Software Status, then Operating System Stats. On this page we have the system uptime, the UTC time, the local time, as well as disk, which shows status information about the system memory, memory, which shows the status of the processor memory, including the amount of free memory and the buffer, load, which shows the status of the processor memory, including the amount of free memory and the buffer, and CPU usage, which shows the CPU's usage for the processor module. Where do I find information about the code download? To find information about the code download, click on Software Status, then Code Download. This page displays the status of the last Terrace QAM host firmware download. So it shows the current upgrade start time if an upgrade was going on, the current upgrade status if an upgrade was still proceeding, and it also shows the last code download status. So last upgrade time as well as the last upgrade status. Where do I check on the code download for the EPG? To check on the code download for the EPG, click on Software Status, then EPG Download. Please remember that only those who have purchased the optional TQ1055 Plus module will be receiving EPG information and will have access to this page. On this page we have the current guide download status, the last guide download status, the current background download status, and the last background download status. Where do I determine if the transcoder has been enabled? To determine if the transcoder has been enabled, click on Software Status, then Transcoder Enabled. This will determine if the transcoder has been enabled. The transcoder is the TQ1035 Plus module. If you do not have this module installed, this page will not appear. Where do I find information about the TLV? To find information about the TLV, click on Software Status, then TLV. This will display the currently active TLV. Where do I find the license information? To find the license information, click on Software Status, then License. This will bring you to the license page. This page allows the user to upload a Terrace QAM license file to enable output features such as providing encryption on a Terrace QAM. Once a license file is uploaded, details about the license file will appear on this page. Each license file is serial number specific and cannot be loaded onto Terrace QAM units for which it is not intended. Please note that the presence of a license file does not enable functionality, but rather allows the unit to be system upgraded to enable functionality. Where do I find information about the logs? To find information about the logs, click on Logs, and you'll have two options, Messages and Persistent. Log messages show the most current logs. These log messages are lost when the unit reboots. Logs Persistent displays the critical log messages that are stored across reboots, such as upgrades, reasons for reboots, etc. Where do I find version information? To find version information, click on the Version Information page. This will display the system release, which shows the version of the system release currently running on the TQ. The processor, which lists the components of the processor module and shows the version number for each component. The decryption resources, which shows the slot number where the M-Card Open Cable Unidirectional Receiver, or MOCR, is installed, and the version number for each one. Output modules lists the components of the output module and shows the version number for each component. Input tuner modules shows the slot where the tuner is installed, the tuner module hardware version number, model number, FPGA version, and the serial number. HD encoder modules shows the slots where the auxiliary input module is installed, the hardware and software version of the modules, and the auxiliary input module serial number. The chassis lists the model and serial number as well as the hardware revision of the Terrace QAM chassis. Finally, ECM shows the serial number of the ECM module and the hardware and software version number if present. How do I reboot the unit? To reboot the unit, you can click on the power symbol in the top right-hand corner or click on Reboot. On the reboot page, you would change this to System or ECM in System, and then click Submit to reboot the unit. On this page, it also shows the system uptime. Where do I get a debug dump from? To get a debug dump, you can either click on the bug symbol in the top right-hand corner, or you can click on Debug Dump. From here, you would generate a new debug dump by clicking Submit. Once the new debug dump has been created, it will appear on this page and be available to download. Where do I upload a TLV? To upload a TLV, click on Upload TLV. This will show the currently active TLV, the last uploaded TLV, the last upload success, and also allow you to upload a new TLV by choosing the file, then clicking Submit. Where do I upgrade the system? To upgrade the system, click on System Upgrade. Here there are two options. System Upgrade from Server allows you to add a row here, which will allow you to add the server IP address as well as the file name. System Upgrade from File allows you to simply choose the file from your local drive, then click Submit.